Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Meghan Gonzalez. I'm a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator at the Hoag, Mary, and Dick Allen Diabetes Center. Today, my talk will be on healthy eating for your kidneys. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and I will answer them at the end. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So a little bit just general information here. Our kidneys. They're a pair of bean-shaped organs on either side of our spine. They're below our ribs and behind our belly. So each kidney is about 4 to 5 inches long, which is about the size of a large fist. So what is the role of our kidneys? One of their main function is to filter the blood and remove the wastes. Kidneys are also involved in balancing our fluid. They produce an enzyme, renin, that helps to control our blood pressure, produces the hormone erythropoietin to help make red blood cells. It activates vitamin D to maintain healthy bones, and kidneys adjust the levels of minerals and other chemicals to keep our body working properly. So how do we keep our kidneys healthy? So we definitely want to control our blood pressure. Also control our blood sugar for those of us who have blood sugar issues, those who are living with diabetes or pre-diabetes. There's a lab called hemoglobin A1C, which is the average of our blood sugar over 3 months. And the goal would be to keep that less than 6.5%. Good idea for all of us to be exercising regularly, stop smoking, limit our alcohol intake, and then eating a healthy diet. And that's obviously what I will go over today. For those of you who are under the care of a nephrologist or kidney specialist, I highly recommend to consult your doctor for any specific diet needs that you have. All right, let's talk about sodium. So what is sodium and how is it used? Well, sodium is a mineral. It helps with maintaining fluid balance. It regulates our blood pressure, is used in our muscle contractions as well as our nerve activities. Okay. So why is sodium restricted in our diet? And this is really good for all of us. High levels of sodium can cause excessive thirst, rapid weight gain, which is really due to edema, which is swelling of our feet, legs, and hands, shortness of breath, high blood pressure, and possibly an enlarged heart. Okay, so how do we avoid getting too much sodium? So just to put this out there, you'll find if you do some research that the American Heart Association recommends for all of us to limit our salt or sodium intake to 1,500 milligrams per day. The American Diabetes Association recommends to limit our salt intake to 2,000 milligrams per day. And in 1 teaspoon of salt, it's about 2,300 milligrams, just to kind of give you a perspective. So for all of us, we really want to avoid using the salt shaker while we're cooking, as well as at the table. If you do put salt on your food, it's recommended to taste the food first. Even if it's the same recipe that you always make or the same type of food, you want to taste it first and then add the smallest amount of salt possible. Another way to reduce the salt or sodium in our diet is to limit processed and commercially prepared foods, such as processed cheeses. That would be American cheese or Velveeta cheese. Anything canned soups, canned food. Salt is used as a preservative, so anything off the shelf is going to contain a good amount of salt. Frozen meals, and then deli meats. There are some delis that do offer a low sodium option for some of their meats that you can always ask. And of course, reading food labels for the sodium content and limiting our high salt condiments. So any type of salt is salt in our diet. There's not one that's better than the other. So garlic salt is salt, onion salt, it's all salt. Also, other high salt condiments would be MSG, soy sauce and a lot of other Asian sauces, steak sauce, Worcestershire sauce, and then limiting foods that are high in sodium. So at the end of my presentation, I have a handout that's attached. So pages 1 through 3 go over high sodium sources and then I've also included some low sodium, so ones to include instead of and try to avoid the high sodium sources. Okay. So let's talk next about potassium. Potassium helps to regulate fluids and mineral balance. It helps us to maintain a normal blood pressure, can reduce our risk for recurrent kidney stones and possibly bone loss, and it helps to control our heartbeat. So what are symptoms of high levels of potassium? Anxiety, irritability, muscle weakness, especially in our legs, stomach cramping, nausea, heart attack, irregular heartbeat, and could possibly lead to death if it's very, very high and not treated. Some of these symptoms obviously are not always due to high levels of potassium, so again, please see your doctor or go to the emergency room if you're having any of these symptoms. Okay, and then for potassium. So if your kidneys are functioning normally, you do not need to limit the amount of potassium in your diet. However, for those of us who have been told by our doctor that our kidneys are maybe not functioning at the normal level, it is usually recommended to limit the amount of potassium in our food. So we still want to eat a good variety of foods, but in moderation. Again, for someone who is following a low potassium diet, you can consider leaching the high potassium vegetables. So on the handout, that would be on page 4, it gives you instructions on how to do that. Also, again, following a low potassium diet, it's not recommended to drink or use the liquid from canned fruits and vegetables or juices from cooked meat. Good in general for all of us to watch the serving sizes of our foods. And again, for a low potassium diet, you don't want to use a salt substitute usually it's called light salt, because instead of sodium chloride, that's the composition of salt, they take out the sodium portion and they have potassium chloride. So again, as you can see, if you had kidneys that weren't functioning normally, then that would not be good if your potassium level is high. And so for our foods that are high in potassium, on our handout on pages 4 through 7, you will find those. Again, mostly fruits and vegetables. We have things like bananas, oranges, orange juice, prunes and raisins. I have vegetables on page 5, so avocado, tomato. So just some examples there. And then I also have on page 6 some low potassium fruits. And then page 7 would be the low potassium vegetables. And of course, even though they're low potassium, you do want to watch the serving sizes, because large serving sizes of low potassium food, obviously the potassium will still add up. Okay. So next we'll talk about phosphorus. So phosphorus is a mineral and it's mainly found in our bones. And the body uses phosphorus to form strong bones and teeth, maintain a normal pH balance, that's the acids and bases in our body. It helps to get oxygen to our tissues, create energy, change protein, fat, and carbohydrates, our macronutrients, into energy. It moves our muscles, produces hormones, and it uses our B vitamins. Okay. So what happens when we have high levels of phosphorus in our blood? Again, only with irregular or less than normal kidney function. We could have bone and heart problems that could possibly lead us to a hospital stay, possibly could lead to death. Our bones can weaken over time, making them more likely to break. High levels of phosphorus can cause low blood calcium, which causes calcium to be taken out of our bones. can cause calcification or hardening of our tissues that can be painful and sometimes lead to health problems, and bone pain is another symptom of high phosphorus. So how do we avoid getting too much phosphorus? And again, this is really if our kidneys are not functioning normally. Your doctor may prescribe a phosphate binder, and I've just listed a few examples there. We would, of course, want to watch our portion sizes of foods that contain phosphorus and avoiding those foods that are high in phosphorus. On the handout, the high phosphorus foods start on page 8 to 9, and then our low phosphorus foods are on page 10. These types of foods, so for high phosphorus foods, these are things like milk, also some of our meats, fish. So you can kind of take a look. There's some nuts, and then you can also, again, use more of the low phosphorus foods, but still looking at the portion sizes. Okay, and then let's talk a little bit more about protein. So protein is one of the macronutrients in our food, along with carbohydrates and fat. And when protein is broken down in our body, it produces nitrogen wastes. And if our kidneys are not functioning properly, they lose the ability to get rid of these waste products. So as the level of nitrogen waste increases in our blood, we can experience symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, fatigue, and loss of appetite. So how do we avoid getting too much protein? So it would just be limiting the foods that are high in protein. These are on page 11 of the handout. So we have animal sources of protein such as chicken, beef, turkey, lamb, fish, shellfish. We also have our plant sources of protein such as beans and lentils. These all contain protein, so we would want to limit those. You can see, though, again, at least I have the reference for you because there's sometimes maybe not a label on our protein foods as there would be on other foods. But you can see I have an example here of a food label, and you would want to just look at the protein amount. And the amount of protein that we need is individualized. Usually as a registered dietitian, I would base that off of your body weight. But again, if you have normal functioning kidneys, you don't have to worry about limiting your protein. But again, if your kidneys are less than normal, talk with your doctor or your kidney specialist about how much protein is right for you. And then my last slide here just contains some resources. I know those people living with kidney disease, there's different stages of kidney disease, but a great website is that first one there, davita.com. That goes to the DaVita dialysis webpage. There are recipes on there. I feel that this kidney diet or diet for healthy kidneys is a very complicated, complex one. Some people need to restrict one thing, everyone with at least something like sodium, but when you have multiple things like restricting potassium and phosphorus, if you study this a little bit more, things sort of conflict. So again, there's some good resources on all of these websites, but definitely some recipes on that first one there. And again, also too, for people who may be living with diabetes, you are at risk for kidney disease. And if you do have diabetes and kidney disease, those are again two different diets to be kind of combined together. So someone like a registered dietitian is definitely a good resource. Here at Hoag, we do require a doctor's referral for you to be seen by a registered dietitian, such as myself. But have your doctor send the referral, and then we can meet whatever nutritional needs that you have. So at our center, we do see people with diabetes, prediabetes, kidney disease, as well as any other outpatient nutrition services that are needed. Okay, so that's the conclusion of my presentation. So we'll go ahead and open it up for questions that you might have. Okay, so we're just waiting for some questions to come in. Again, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box and they will come to me. Okay. Okay, so the question is, are you at increased risk for kidney issues with diabetes? And the answer is yes. Diabetes or high blood sugar often it affects our whole entire body, but especially likes to target the small blood vessels, some of them being in the kidneys. So I think it was one of my first slides that I show, we want to control your blood sugar, keeping that hemoglobin A1C less than 6.5. That's the main thing with your diabetes, managing your blood sugars in order to decrease your risk for kidney disease. Your doctor who is managing your diabetes should be doing blood work. Usually it's every 3 to 4 months, and they should be checking your blood for your kidney function. And then also once a year, your doctor should order your urine to be tested, and they're actually testing for the amount of protein in your urine. Again, if it's a high amount, it means those kidneys are slowing down, and again, that could indicate kidney problems or possibly kidney disease. Okay, so this question is, how does diabetes damage your kidneys? And again, sort of what I just answered in the last question, just want to re-emphasize the importance of controlling your blood sugar. Kind of bottom line to prevent any complications with diabetes, but especially for kidney disease. Definitely, again, it's just getting and keeping your blood sugars under good control, keeping the hemoglobin A1C less than 6.5. Okay, another question. Is food and medication the only way to prevent kidney damage? Definitely play a big role in our kidneys for sure. One thing I didn't really touch on a lot was fluids. So drinking a lot of fluids, especially water, is good to flush out the kidneys. Again, they're filtering all those wastes out of our blood, so we want the fluids to kind of push them through, but especially water, or for those of us with diabetes, sugar-free liquids would be the best way. But again, exercise, keeping the blood pressure down. So referring back again, I believe, to my second slide or so, slide towards the beginning on how to keep our kidneys healthy, but definitely food and then medication if needed are definitely big parts of it. And then, is kidney disease hereditary? You know, that's a good question. I don't know that I 100% know that answer. I know a lot of things, a lot of medical issues are definitely hereditary, genetically sort of inherited. I would say if you do have a family member with kidney disease, I would talk it over with your doctor just to see maybe some screening can be done for you just to determine your risk factors. But again, usually one of our common blood panels that most of our doctors will draw for us, usually the kidneys are on there. It's a pretty common one to check. Okay. Okay, is there a connection between kidney disease and kidney cancer? That is a good question. I don't know that I've heard of any links. However, you know, definitely if our kidneys aren't functioning properly, I think that's just more on the function of the kidneys. You know, I don't know that we know everything about cancer. Again, I think just eating healthy, exercising, you know, drinking lots of fluids, stop smoking, all those kind of general things are good recommendations, but I don't know that there is a direct link between kidney disease and kidney cancer. Okay, how common is kidney disease? That's a very good question. I don't know that I have exact statistics on it. Again, I do work a lot with people who are living with diabetes, and it is definitely more common in those people than I'd say outside of that. Although I have seen people without diabetes who do have kidney disease. I didn't bring any numbers with me, but that is a good question. I'm sure we could go online and kind of look that up. Definitely another risk factor for kidney disease as well as diabetes is just age. So as we get older, again, our doctors should be routinely checking for kidney disease. So I'm not sure again on any numbers or specific statistics, but I'd say it is a fairly common thing that I do see quite often, especially in older adults.
I think that's the end of the questions.
Okay. Well, that's the end of our questions. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope to see you again. We may possibly do these in the future, but thank you for tuning in today and keep yourself healthy. Thank you.